In the heart of Kenya, bustling streets and vibrant communities conceal a hidden struggle that is not often discussed. For many Kenyan women, poverty is a harsh reality, yet they know they must provide for their families. Gone are the days when one could rely on the man to bring home the bread. Some women turn to desperate solutions. Brewing chang'aa, a potent illegal brew in Kenya. There is no other way. It puts food on the table. During the colonial era, Kenyans were prohibited by the British government from drinking bottled beer. This restriction narrowed down to the production of traditional brews for ceremonial purposes only. After independence, traditional brews like chang'aa flourished in urban slums and villages, but the Kenyan government did not legalize it, unlike the neighboring Tanzania and Uganda, which licensed the hygienic production of konyagi and waragi respectively, which are equivalent to Kenya's chang'aa. In recent years, these homemade brews have gained popularity due to their affordability and accessibility, but questions on their quality and potency began to crop up with time. This prompted the government to ban illicit brews by raiding and arresting the brewers. They would later revert to brewing after being released from jail. Later on, it was discovered that in most of these villages where there is a lot of brewing, the women were the sole breadwinners in their families. Some of them were widows and others had absent husbands. Therefore, many factors force women to contribute towards illicit brewing in the country.
In our fight against illicit brews, we have identified women as a very critical part of the society in this fight against illicit brews. In Elgeyo Marakwet County, majority of those who brew, I can confidently say over 90% are women. So the fight against illicit brews cannot be won without women. That is why the government has come up with a structured way of trying to reform women so that these brews can at least decrease.
One is economic. Poverty and unemployment drive many women to engage in illicit brewing as a means of livelihood. Two is limited access to regulated alcohol in rural areas where licensed alcohol outlets may be scarce or expensive. Therefore, illicit brews provide a readily available and affordable alternative. Three is culture. Traditional alcoholic beverages such as chang'aa and busaa have deep cultural roots in many Kenyan communities due to their cultural significance. And four is lack of awareness. Some women may not fully understand the health risks associated with illicit brews to consumers. The fight against alcohol and drug abuse in Kenya is spearheaded by the National Authority for the Campaign Against Alcohol and Drug Abuse, Nacada, a state agency mandated to coordinate efforts to deal with the challenges of alcohol and drug abuse. Alcohol abuse, especially with traditional brews like chang'aa, is a weighty issue in Kenya. A 2022 Nacada survey revealed that 1 in 5 men and 1 in 20 women aged 15 to 65 are current alcohol users. The survey also indicates that the consumption of illicit brews was prevalent within communities in the country. The Western region recorded the highest prevalence level at 85.8%. followed closely by Nyanza at 81.9% and Rift Valley at 55.6%. The survey additionally indicates that 1 in every 45 youths aged 15 to 24 years nationwide are addicted to alcohol. To mitigate the illicit brewing menace, the government has come up with measures such as legislation aimed at regulating and deterring the production, consumption, and selling of illicit brews. To unravel the issues behind illicit alcohol brewing by women in the country's northern frontier, Nacada set out 6 counties: West Pokot, Trans Nzoia, Elgeyo Marakwet, Baringo, Nandi, and Uasin Gishu. These counties have borne the brunt of illicit alcohol brewing by women for decades. However, the tide seems to be turning and they are now ditching the practice.
Awali nilikuwa mkemaji wa pombe haramu. Nilikema kwa miaka 8 mpaka 2018. Wakati ule ulikuwa unaweza kema pombe, unafukuzwa na hata hiyo pesa huoni. Nilikuwa naishi Spain, nilikuwa na chemsha pombe, nilikuwa na kunywa, nilikuwa nauza. Sikuwa na mwelekeo popote. Nilidharauliwa mpaka na watoto wangu, mpaka na community, kwa sababu sikuwa na mwelekeo.
Nilikuwa ninachemsha chang'aa, ninauza. Hiyo ndio ilikuwa ni kazi yangu. Mimi nilikuwa sijui chochote, nilikuwa tu bora nakaribisha. Huko kwangu haijui ni watoto wa shule, haijui mabwana za watu, haijui bibi za watu, haijui walimu, hata madaktari. Wote walikuwa kwangu. Kwangu ilikuwa hakuna mchana, kwa inaitwa usiku na mchana huko niona. Anashangaa, mapolisi walikuwa lakini sijui, tunashikwa lakini hatustuki. Hiyo ilikuwa ni kazi. Tunalewa, hii barabara yote ni matusi. Ukishalewa tu, sisi hatujali wewe ni nani, wewe ni mkubwa, wewe si mkubwa. Sisi tulikuwa tunapita. Hata huyu mheshimiwa Kaemba alikuwa anaona shida, anapita anaweka kichwa chini kwa sababu tulikuwa hatujali ati yeye ni mkubwa. Nashukuru Mungu penye ametutoa. Tuliharibu watoto wa watu, shule watoto waliwacha kwa sababu ya pombe. Kweli pombe ni mbaya.
Tulikuwa hakuna kuoga, hata kufaa. Tunakuwa na nganyanga chini. Hatukuchua hata maana ya usafi. Ng'ombe hakuna, hata kulima shamba hakuna. Kazi yetu tu ni mtungi kwa nyumba. Nilikuwa naishi nyumba yangu moja ya nyasi, jikoni, sitting room na bedroom.
Tangu niwachane naye nimebadilika, sababu wakati nilikuwa ninatengeneza, watoto walikuwa wanakuja lunch time, wanapata wateja wako kwa nyumba, nikaona wanasumbua watoto wako.
Tukilinganisha wakati ile walikuwa wanatengeneza pombe, tuseme kwa vile hatukuwa na amani, kwa sababu watu walikuwa wanakunywa pombe, wanateremka, wengine wanatukanana. Yani tabia iko mzuri.
Nacada is a state corporation under the State Department of Interior. We are the lead agency in matters to do with alcohol and drug abuse. And in our role as Nacada and as a coordinator, pretty much we are a campaign that works towards reducing the effects, prevalence of alcohol and drug abuse. It starts with the person. There's normally some intrinsic resistance to the change, which is natural. Secondly, there's a challenge of the cultural change. Most of these women engage in these practices from a cultural perspective. And the moment they decide to stop these practices, they go against the cultural grain. So there's a challenge of resistance from the community. Thirdly, there's a learning curve. When you stop this nefarious enterprise and you want to go into a legitimate space, you have to learn the new trade. So there's normally the challenge of learning and the learning curve. And you know, it varies from one person to another, one community to another. It might be longer. And if it is elongated, there's diminished profits. Because as you remember, this is a commercial enterprise, even though illegal, that they were doing before. Thirdly, there's the issue of once a business becomes legitimate, with it comes other statutory requirements. For example, you have to register the company, which many of them see as a long bureaucratic process. There's the issue of taxes. You now get into a space where you have to pay taxes. You also have to pay for licenses because there's people operating within the counties.
Na hii kitabu ya Habakkuk 5:1 hiyo ilikuwa inasema, ole wenyu wenye mnapea watoto wa watu pombe, mkianika watu uchi, mumelaaniwa na kizazi chenyu, sijui ya kwanza mpaka ya 3. Nikasema kulaaniwa. Sasa hapo ndio nilistuka, nikawaza, nikasema woi, tumesomesha watoto, hakuna vile tutapeleka watoto, hakuna vile tutafaulu. Kumbe tumelaaniwa kwa sababu tunaua watu, tunatoa uchi ya watu. Na hapo ndio nilistuka bila hata kusema nini, na nikafikiria sana. Kakaa nikakuja nikaomba msamaha Mungu, mimi mwenyewe nikajiomba msamaha, nikajisamea.
Saa hiyo unakumbuka, kumbe nilikuwa na ng'ombe moja huko nyumbani, nilikuwa na kondoo, nitaenda cheni hiyo na nikashika jembe nilime shamba. Hakuna faida ya pombe. Pombe tu ni kuhangaika bure na kukanyaga tu maktime. Huwezi enda mbele na huwezi enda rudi nyuma.
Wakati aliyekuwa gavana wa Uasin Gishu Jackson Mandago alikuja Spain, alituambia tuende ofisi wamama kadhaa ambaye walikuwa wanachemsha chang'aa wakikunywa. Tulipofika ofisi, wamama wengine walirudi nyuma wakasema Mandago anataka kuwafunga. Tulienda tukiwa 4 mpaka kwa ofisi ya Mandago, na akatuambia nitawafunza kutega samaki kuliko kuwapea samaki mkule.
Sisi tulitoka huko Empowerment Lives, tulikuwa wamama 53 na tukakuja tukaanzisha kusave pia pesa, of which tuko na CPO group ambayo inaitwa Sikunet CPO group, ambayo tuko na table banking, of which saa hiyo ndio inatusaidia kusomesha watoto wetu.
Hata wananiuliza, wewe ulifanya nini mpaka watoto wako wameenda polytechnic? Unapitianga wapi? Naambia ni mkutano tu, tukiitwa unakuwa chap unakimbia. Unaenda kusikia kenye inatakikana, hata kama hakuna pesa unatafuta. Si ati mpaka ukuwe na pesa ndio mtoto aende.
We also try to showcase the fact that even though we apprehend the users at the tail end of the chain, so long as the suppliers are still there, new users will always emerge. Yes. So one of the key things that we tell them is that they are very instrumental from a root cause analysis perspective. If they change, there will be no supply of these drugs and alcohol.
Njia mzuri ni ya kwenda biashara na kuacha kupika pombe, na biashara ni kitu mzuri, na nikawapea mafunzo wakati nilienda huko Ilula.
Tuingie kwa shamba na tulime. Si pombe peke yake ndio vitu inapatikana. Tukilima tutapata pesa. Tutafanya biashara na watoto wetu watasoma, manyumba zetu zitaendelea.
To win the war against the illicit brews in Kenya, the government came up with a multi-agency approach spearheaded by Nacada through the North Rift Regional Office and relevant county governments in Uasin Gishu, Nandi, Elgeyo Marakwet, Baringo, West Pokot and Trans Nzoia, as well as the National Government Administration Officers or Ngao coordinated programs that resulted in women engaged in the brewing of illicit alcohol abandoning the activity and undertaking alternative livelihood activities.
We have a number of the reformed brewers who are already carrying out their various businesses, their various small businesses, and we are going to empower them and give them more training, carry out monitoring and evaluation, so that the office, Alcoholic Drinks Control Board, is able to know of the 300 trained reformed brewers. How are they going on?
Issue of alcohol and drug abuse in West Pokot is quite low, and that one can be evidenced from the number of liquor licensed outlets that have been registered. We have got 113 spread across all the sub-counties, but the sub-county in which we are in is very unique. We don't have even one liquor licensed outlet, and you can see that this is a highland area where people are really into other activities like farming and other engageful, meaningful activities.
I had a number of 20 women who were brewing illicit brew, and the situation was still bad in our area. And after meeting these women, we were able to talk to them, put them in a group, and they have already registered as a self-help group. So these women have been able to be in that group for a period of 1 year now. They've been doing table banking, and they are now looking for funds to support their projects.
When we wanted to do some crackdown, we realized that there are some groups which wanted to operate. And when we consulted the county government and also the county liquor licensing board, they advised us to do some public participation. So we mounted public participation in 5 areas, almost at the locational level. And what we found was a resounding no. The community, especially the elderly, refused in one voice that they will not allow. They don't want any bars to be legalized. They even don't want any pool table businesses or any kind of betting activities.
It came into my mind that daily crackdowns was not the only option to end this illicit brewing. So I started an alternative way of ending illicit brews in my sublocation. By then, I was an assistant chief Sami sublocation. So I called upon all the brewers in my sublocation. We talked, and finally they accepted and they surrendered brewing. And I was also assisted by Empowering Lives International, headed by Mr. Teimuga, who is Samuel Teimuga, who is the director of that institution. We made several meetings, and finally they took them for a training on the rehabilitation of those women. So when they ended the course, we took them in a week's time. They came back fully reformed, and they had so many activities which they conducted from there.
The strategy to provide alternative livelihood to those engaged in the brewing of illicit alcohol is vital in solving problems like poverty. People who live in poverty are more likely to engage in drug abuse, become criminals, and suffer from bad health. There is a need for all stakeholders to ensure that alternative livelihood activities to those engaged in the brewing of illicit alcohol are sustainable, therefore enhancing legal businesses and promoting the living standards of the society.
First, we began when the office commenced its operations. That was in November 2013. We embarked in ensuring that every county
has a legislation in place. Nacada had a model law that we shared with all the counties, and through their county assemblies, they were able to enact their own respective acts. And so far in the entire region, every county has an act in place. And we went further to support in operationalizing the same. So every county has a directorate, or both. Some of them have both a directorate and a board. For those that do not have a board, they have a directorate. So for us, it's still a beginning point where we engage with them.
So it is a multi-agency approach. We've started it in these 6 counties, but it's our intention to roll it out nationwide. And we will want to champion and pillion on the successes of what we are doing here. So it is a multiple-pronged approach. And since these are individuals we are dealing with, even the individuals themselves are party to this journey.
Wengine vile waliona nimebadilika, wengine walitamani sana kujua ni nini imenibadilisha, na mimi nikakuwa na huo moyo ya kushare vile nilienda nikabadilika, na wakakubali kwa sababu waliona mimi mwenyewe nimebadilika.
Nataka tu niwaambie wenye bado wanaendelea, kuna hasara kidogo hapo juu, akipatikana hata hiyo pesa yote yenye alikuwa amesanya ataenda atoe kotini na watoto wabaki bure, hakuna kitu itamsaidia.
Hii kitu hakuna mahali itakupeleka, itakumaliza na bado iko. Wewe utaisha bado iko. Sasa fanya hivi, angalia kitu yenye unaweza fanya, yenye inaweza kupatia pesa, kama leo 50 bob, kesho 100, kesho kutwa ukisanya. Kwa wiki moja utakuwa umepata hata 300 ama 350 na utakuwa umefanyia kitu. Hakuna faida ya pombe. Pombe tu ni kuhangaika bure na kukanyaga tu maktai. Huwezi enda mbele na huwezi enda rudi nyuma. Hata afya yako unaharibu.
Hata wenye wanasema ati watoto waende wanalipia watoto wa shule, hawezi pata faida. Hata saa ingine unachukua pesa ya mtu, sio kwa uzuri, lakini utakuwa umesumbua maisha yako. So wenye bado wanafikiria hiyo pombe inamsaidia, naambia wawaje na wabadilishe maisha yao.
Nashukuru sana kwa ajili ya serikali hii. Ninasema iendelee kushikilia hawa wamama, wawatembelee na wawafundishe ili wabadilike kama Alice.
Currently, reformed illicit brew sellers are agents of change within their communities by advocating for legal businesses and therefore becoming the role models to other brewers in society.
For a nation
free from alcohol and drug abuse.